let's rank all Spyro characters from Spyro 1, Spyro 2, Gateway to Glimmer or Ripto's Rage, and Spyro 3, Year of the Dragon. And by all characters I mean the main characters and recurring characters. I don't mean the fodder, the NPC characters and just the enemies you find in levels. So without further ado, let's go! Side note, Spyro the Dragon is one of my favourite games of all time, but I'm going to try and be as fair and cynical as possible. Spyro. There is no Spyro the Dragon games without the titular character, which is Spyro. He's purple, he's got attitude, and he is just awesome. So we're kicking it off with an S tier. Ganasty Gnorc. Or Nasty Nork, if you're boring. What was his motive for freezing all the dragons? Is it because he called them ugly? Seems like a fair reason, however, in terms of a character, he's not very interesting. So, Nasty Nork gets a C. Toasty, the first real boss you come up against in Spyro 1, so it sticks in my mind quite a lot. And it's quite funny that it's just 3 sheep under a trench coat on stilts. So for the ingenuity, it's pretty funny, not very challenging, however, I'm going to give Toasty a B. Dr. Shemp's a badass, he's got the sunglasses, he's got the staff, and he's not afraid to have his ass out, and for that, Dr. Shemp is getting a B. Blowhard is arguably the most boring boss in Spyro 1, and for that, I'm just going to give Blowhard a D. What is he? Just a bag of wind. Jax, or Jakku. He's fine, he's just a funny Jack-in-the-Box kind of character. He is the boss before the kind of final levels, so he's okay, but I'm only giving Jax a C. We're on to Spyro 2 Gateway to Glimmer, or Ripto's Rage, and Spyro 2 is my favourite game within the series. So much nostalgia. Love it. Elora from Avalar is one of the first speaking NPCs we come across in Spyro 2, and she is incredibly helpful, giving Spyro his guidebook so he can get all the talismans and keep track of orbs, etc. I like Elora, a really good character and I think a great addition to the series. However, I think she's been a little bit over-sexualised in some areas of the gaming sub-world. Fuck knows. Anyway, Elora gets an A. Hunter is the bumbling fool in Avalar. He probably should and could be more helpful to Spyro, but he isn't. The only thing he helps in doing is hoarding orbs and challenging Spyro to little mini games. Don't even get me started on the popcorn one. Hunter's fine, he's a good character, but he's getting a B. The Professor. Bit boring, a bit nothing. All he seems to do is be able to create portals and mess things up. The mini game where you need to trade his pencil up for stuff in Mystic Marsh is nothing but infuriating. So for that reason and that reason alone, Professor is getting a D. Ripto is the best antagonist in the Spyro series, and it's not even close. The little red guy with the horn, the cape, the scepter, just angry at life and just hates dragons, which makes him a very good match for Spyro. So Ripto is getting an S tier. Crush is one of Ripto's minions and the first boss you really come up against in Spyro 2. He chases you around with his big club, he's fairly easy to beat, he's a good character but he's nothing more than that. He is a C tier. Gulp is another one of Ripto's minions, and he I think is more interesting because he eats his scepter and he's got a bit more personality, and do not get me started on the difficulty of the boss fight in the Reignited trilogy. Holy moly. Gulp is a good character, a really tough boss, so Gulp gets a B. Moneybags, the first notion of capitalism in the Spyro series. Moneybags is actually a really good character, I really do like him, but he steals your gems and it's annoying at times, especially when you were younger and you didn't collect everything on your way. So for that reason, Moneybags is only getting an A. The Sorceress is the main antagonist in the Spyro 3 game, Year of the Dragon. She's more interesting than Nasty Nork, but she's not as interesting as Ripto. She has her moments and the reignited version of her is strange. So the Sorceress is getting a C. Are those Botox lips? Bianca, who serves the Sorceress, is a good character. She is Spyro 3's Elora in my opinion, but that's where it ends. She's interesting, she has a bit of a strange kind of relationship with Hunter which adds a different dimension and dynamic. However, she's only just a B. G'day mate, it's Sheila. Sheila is fine. She's the first of the playable characters who isn't Spyro. I like the concept, I like the idea. I know that they needed to try something different to make the games more appealing and just something new and inventive, but for me, I would have preferred it was just Spyro the playable character. But Sheila, out of all of the newly introduced characters, is probably the best, so she's getting a B. Sergeant Bird sucks and I don't really like him. As I said, I'm not a big fan of the new playable characters, and he is one of my least favourite characters, so for that reason Sergeant Bird is getting a D. Bentley, again, falls into the exact same category of Sergeant Bird. I just don't really care, adds nothing to the series, just a bit annoying, has the stupid spinny club thing, so again, it's just a D. Agent 9 is the worst out of all of them. I think it's the laziest new character in the series. I don't particularly like him, I never particularly enjoyed playing as him, so I'm actually going to give Agent 9 an F. I think Spyro Year of the Dragon really falls flat in a lot of his boss battles. They're not as memorable as the Spyro 1 or 2 bosses, and Buzz is the first one of this category. He's fine. I like the idea of the sorceress changing this ineffective rhino into this big scary beast, but that's kind of where it ends, so Buzz gets a C. Spike is, again, pretty forgettable. That's the problem with Spyro 3's bosses, in my opinion. They're not as memorable as a Dr. Shemp, a Ripto, a Gulp, or a Crush, so I'm going to give Spike a D. Scorch, I completely forgot existed, genuinely. This is, again, there's a bias here. There is a bias here, so I'm going to give Scorch a D. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sparks has been in all the games. Why has he been left till last? Because Sparks became a playable character in Spyro 3, because they just decided that everyone should be playable. Sparks' levels are okay. They are not the worst, they are a small aside to the main mission, I guess. So it is fun to play as Sparks from his perspective. I do like the idea behind Sparks throughout the games, where he indicates what Spyro's health is at. I think that's really inventive, as opposed to just your standard health bar. For that reason, I'm giving Sparks an A. And that's it. The Spyro series is genuinely one of my favourite series of all time. It stands up against the Marios, the Zeldas for me. It's got such great level design, it's got great sound design, thanks Stuart Copeland, and it's also got great characters. Some are better than others, as you've just watched. Anyway, thanks for being here, and if you liked what you've seen, like and subscribe. See you later.